Welcome to the Evolving Digital Self podcast, where we explore the conscious use of technology. Listen in to hear thought leaders and other guests discuss the human relationship with technology and learning to thrive in the digital era. Hosted by the author of the international best-selling Digital Self-Mastery series and Being at Work, Dr. Heidi Forbes Öste.
Welcome back to the Evolving Digital Self podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Heidi Forbes Öste, and I am so excited to share our wonderful guest with you today. It's Mike Koenigs. He's a serial entrepreneur and 12-time #1 best-selling author, speaker, interactive online personality, and entertainer. This guy is so phenomenal. His products, services, and advice have made a reality for people to get attention, get found, seen, heard, watched, and read on any device, anytime, anywhere, on demand. I can contest to that, for over 50,000 customers in 121 countries. So I'm delighted to share Mike Koenigs with you today, and we're going to have a great conversation. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Heidi. It's nice to be here.
So, Mike, I met you through an event a couple years ago, and it was just so inspiring because for me, I had just finished my dissertation, being so just surrounded by a bubble that didn't know how to get my stuff out there. So hearing about you everywhere now and your work and how to get my content, my book out there was just a really fabulous thing. Can you tell us a little bit about how things like You Everywhere Now and Publish for Profit came into place for you?
Yeah, I think, my background is, first of all, I was a technology guy first. So I started life as a programmer. And growing up, I loved movies and video games, and I loved music too. I grew up in a musical family. But I was never one of those guys who was in front of the camera. I always liked the background. So I loved engineering and producing and, figuring out how things worked. But my first real job was I started consulting when I was young. And then as time went on, I ended up starting a digital ad agency with a good friend of mine who is also a filmmaker. So I kind of combined my unique skill set of technology with that. And very quickly, we had to learn how to be marketers. And so, and eventually that company got bought by a very large advertising agency called Campbell Mithun. They're $1 billion a year advertising agency. And I had my first exit. And as soon as that happened, I started dabbling in online marketing. And this is back in the late 90s. And what I learned very quickly was if you wanted to get out there, you had to really figure out how to get attention, but also to get exposure. You needed to find a way to get read and to be seen and to be heard. And I ended up developing my first information product was called the Internet Infomercial Toolkit. So this came out before there was a YouTube. And what I did is I got trained by and I contacted infomercial producers because I figured, okay, I want to figure out how to sell with video. And back then, it cost a fortune if you wanted to put video online. But YouTube came along, and that problem got solved. But then the next thing is, how do you tell a story? How do you persuade? How do you influence? And that led to scientifically finding out, what is it that causes us to buy? And eventually, that turned into another technology company called Traffic Geyser, which was a way of distributing content online. It was like you could load up a video, press a button, it would get distributed. At that point, there were hundreds of video sites. There were hundreds of social media sites. It was before the big consolidation happened. So what our tool did is it allowed you to put your content in once, press a button, it would literally get sent all over the internet. And the next thing I built was a technology platform called Instant Customer, which is a mobile text marketing platform, both of which I sold a few years ago now. But if you fast forward and to finally answer your question, the key thing that I ran into over and over again when I talked to all my customers is like, Mike, how do I get my message out there? How do I increase my visibility? How do I get attention? How do I get taken seriously? How do I increase my value? The questions were always the same. And as a student of celebrity, as a student of getting attention, as a student of all these things, I've always tried to find a way not only where I could do it, but I'd teach other people how to do it too. And that just became this ongoing conversation and a long series of products. So again, probably a long-winded answer to your question. But, the key thing is, everyone has the same problem. Every business, every individual. How do I get found? How do I get seen? How do I get heard? How do I get listened to, watched, and build my own platform, build my audience?
And what a great resource you are for people who, they know that they need that, but they're not really sure where to start. So I think what you're doing is really, it's a very powerful and important thing. So thank you for your work and what you're doing now. I'm kind of curious, you know a little bit about the digital self from our conversations. Where do you see yourself in there in terms of your own use of technology and your relationship with technology, how it integrates both in your work and your life?
Yeah, well, for most of my life, I would probably consider myself whatever the super on the edge, cutting edge. Like, I, generally speaking, own everything even before it's available. Like, I used to be a beta tester. I tested out what was the very first digital camera that was ever made. And back then it was like 16 shades of gray, and the image size was 128 pixels by 128 pixels. I mean, this thing was primitive. And then, the same is true with every piece of tech. I was one of the first early adopters of the first microcomputers in the day as well. And, I built tech. So, and I would consider myself at the time probably a total addict as well. I mean, I spent every dime I made on new tech, and completely fascinated by it. And it would be all I would do. I mean, super OCD and ADHD at the same time over this. And as a programmer too, it's like I had to be on the cutting edge. And that extended into until fairly recently. But something interesting happened along the way. One of them is when I finally attained one of my dreams, which was to be a video game developer. I had played so many games by that time that I kind of lost interest in gaming. Then if you fast forward, I have a 15-year-old son now who loves technology. He's not quite as obsessed as I was, but left to his own devices, he'd prefer to sit around. And for him, video games are socialization. Like, he talks to his friends while he plays. He plays group, like, first-person shooters. His cousins who live in Minnesota, that's where I'm from, also play video games together. And as I contrast myself with him and maybe my wife, I've reached a point now where what I prefer to do is use technology as a tool. I still love playing with it, but I'm not obsessed like I used to be. I would much rather, like, my daily, like my morning ritual is, and you can't really see it here, but I live on the beach in La Jolla, California. I go out and I try to swim every morning. Yes, I've got my technology on. Yes, it's by my side, but like, I use my iPad. I like to watch movies now. It's become a tool and an entertainment system, and also a mechanism to connect deeper with my family. So we try to do, we watch movies together. That's an intimate connection between my son and I. And for my wife, who has a foundation, it's a tool for her. So I'm kind of more like a mechanic at this point when it comes to technology. I see it as being useful, but I can genuinely leave my phone behind, turn it off, and have an evening or a day without it, and I'm totally fine. And I wouldn't have said that would be the case, a few years ago, for example.
Do you think that that's also, I know you've also been doing some inner work personally. Do you think that part of that has impacted your relationship with technology and you're sort of finding a more peaceful flow with it rather than sort of the obsessive hoarding piece?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think some of my technology fascination had to do with FOMO, fear of missing out. And it would pass me by and somehow I'd get behind and I'd lose out or I'd miss out or something like that. And then, of course, when I had cancer 5 years ago now, technology was a great, useful tool, but I think that helped me put a lot of things in perspective. My values changed. I realized that if it would be an obsession or my fascination or my constant focus on technology was in fact taking away from the quality and the depth of relationships I had. it's like that old saying, no one ever wishes from their deathbed that they wish they would have spent more time in the office. Mm-hmm. And I certainly know that I'd never look back and go, God, I wish I would have spent more time fiddling around with technology and tinkering. I think it would be, I wish I would have created more. I wish it would have impacted more lives. I wish I would have had another 5 or 10 minutes with my boy, mm-hmm. or said goodbye or hello or connected with my family, So again, now I see it as a tool, as a mechanism for communication, as an outlet for creativity. But boy, I'm not driven by that same fear of missing out that I certainly was. And that's just some old childhood wounds and some trauma that I think was left unchecked for a long period of time.
Yeah. Well, good for you. And I love the way you talk about sort of, I have a son that's similar to yours, where he just, he connects with his friends around the world. Having been expats, it's a great way for him to maintain that connection, play video games with his friends online. And we sit down and watch movies together. And sometimes actually we're in the same space, but if he doesn't want to watch the same movie, he'll still sit there on the couch with his iPad watching the movie, but we get to snuggle. So, there's something to be said about that too. It's like we get to be in that same space. Whereas before, if you were relying on one television and no other options, it's like, well, I don't want to watch this, so I'm going to go in the other room. So I think there's something so wonderful about using it to where it enhances your life and adds value rather than taking away from it. So good for you for really recognizing that. I'm really curious because I know that a lot of your work with You Everywhere Now and just getting visibility for people requires using technology that sometimes people aren't that comfortable with. And it takes people out of their comfort zone. I know, having done some media training with you, that was a big moment for me of taking me out of my introvert comfort zone. I was like, okay. And it wasn't so much the technology of being behind the scenes, but it was all of a sudden being, in front of the camera rather than behind the camera, and, having to wear makeup and sort of look glamorous, which by the end was fun. But,
and you put on your glamour. You looked absolutely fabulous and glamorous. Well, so it worked. Thank
you. It was quite fun towards the end, but I think for me, maybe it's not the technology piece, but I think for others, it may be just having even think about, you want me to, whether it's, self-publishing your book and all of the different interactions you have to do there. And, can you talk a little bit about your experience with helping either help them over their anxiety hump, or what kinds of things might be you recommend for helping people in that process?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a beautiful question, by the way. And it really touched something in me. I feel very emotional right now. So I'm going to give you the best answer I can give you, which is, I don't know where this came from. It's kind of a variation on a little Tony Robbinsism, but it goes something like this. Which belief have you had in the past about who you thought you were that no longer serves who you wish to become, or the people you wish to serve with your skills or your talents or your knowledge? And effectively, what that question is supposed to do is, a lot of people will say, well, I'm an introvert, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, or I can't, or I won't, or I shouldn't. And they've got an old rule that is a prison that they've created for themselves, and it's kept them stuck in a place that has prevented their true self from showing up, or their courage to appear. So if you take a look at this whole notion of this old story that you've been telling yourself and how it's been holding you back, what ultimately happens is when you have a shift in consciousness, what will occur is you'll stop that old story that is preventing you from doing or having or being or providing service. And again, what I will tell you is I have served now over 54,000 customers, paid customers I know of. I know hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people watch my videos, et cetera, et cetera. I've helped a lot of people out of their pickle and their old story that I can't use technology, I'm not good at technology, or whatever it is. And the truth is, right now, tech is now easier than ever before to use. It's more accessible than ever. And all of us walk around with a mobile television station, our smartphones, in our pockets. And we have the ability to produce a television show on the run, right? You can plug in $100 microphone into your phone and it'll sound as good as a movie. I mean, there's just like, there is no excuse. And I think you got to get back to, I want to serve and help and support people, and I want to share my message. And when you get associated with that and you relinquish an old story and reframe it in your mind, that can overcome any limiting belief that you have and relinquish and release you from that prison that does not serve who you are and who you wish to become. So again, that's a very wordy way of answering your question, but I have seen so many people just have a moment of awareness when they answer that question and they reframe and they're like, you just changed my life, and I've just given my permission to never be attached to that old story anymore. And they often will say, and I know where it came from. I know the moment that happened, and it was an old trauma, and it was literally just a new question, relinquish that attachment to that trauma, and they're able to go on and literally change their life. And I've seen it many, many times. People have gone, from barely scraping by to making $1 million in a year, to people who've written books and become best-selling authors. Or I taught them a little technique on how they can speak their book in their car while they're driving or whatever it is. And, the road to heaven is paved with these beautiful stories of transformation and relinquishing their old attachments.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, it is such a gift to be able to change that mindset and be able to move forward. I think along the lines of that, I'm also wondering, sort of for you, you've scaled your business beautifully. And I'm sure you probably know how to do pretty much everything in your business yourself. But for a lot of people who have that capability with technology, there's sort of that challenge of when do I delegate and when does it make sense, or how do I sort of let go of the need to do it all myself? What was that magic moment for you when you realized, whether it was a question of scale or whether it was a question of there's only so many hours in the day, what do I need somebody else to do? What is more productive? Sort of wondering what was that magic trigger for you? Or was it not a magic trigger? Was it just sort of, it just happened?
Well, yeah. So I think I'll give you two answers to that. The first one is, in the past, I just did it unconsciously. Like I'd get to the point where I had enough balls dropping, and those balls were so expensive that I put someone in the place to prevent the bleeding from occurring. So in other words, all I was doing is filling up holes in a dike. And it wasn't like, I didn't do it by rhyme or reason. And I'd just be like, hey, I know someone who could probably do that. And I'd bring them in, which is the worst hiring mistake you can make. And I will tell you that historically, I have made horrible hiring mistakes. I've given away millions of dollars due to my own ignorance and lack of ability to be a good operator in my own business. And yes, in the past, I knew how to do just about everything in my own business. And over the past year and a half, and I won't even say it's even been longer than that. I had hired some really good people who came in and operated my business pretty well. And even right now, I mean, I don't even know how to do some of the stuff inside. I don't know how to run Infusionsoft, for example. I can go in there and look around, but if I had a gun to my head, there's some stuff I just don't know how to do. And I have zero desire, negative 1 billion desire to learn how to do a bunch of stuff in there, because it's relatively easy. So the better answer to your question is this: if you want to make, let's say, there's generally 2,000 work hours in a year, and if you want to make $100,000, that equates into $50 per hour, right? To make $100,000. Now, the truth is, you won't have 2,000 work hours in a year. It ain't going to happen. And it's probably, you're lucky if you have 100 or 1,000 work hours. So it's really going to be about $100 an hour for your productive 1,000 hours. So that means anything that you could hire someone to do for less than $100, and know that there's some fuzzy math here because you got to figure in taxes and expenses and all other kind of stuff. But let's just use rough numbers. That means anything that you can hire someone for less than $100, you got to hire someone if you want to grow past that mark. And the same is true. If you want to make $1 million a year, it's $1,000 an hour or $500 an hour, depending on how you look at it, right? So you gotta play the game. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have that to invest in the first place. And that's what scaling is all about. It's sometimes you got to put in. It's either you're going to put in the blood and the sweat, or you're going to throw down some cash. And it also means you got to systemize, which really comes down to discipline. So there isn't an easy answer. Well, actually, there is an easy answer to the question, which is charge more money for your products and your services and have the courage and commitment. And the way you get more courage is by speaking. It comes from writing a book. It comes from turning on your camera, sticking it on a tripod and talking on Facebook Live or whatever your avenue is. It comes from starting a podcast. And also asking. And so, and look, I get up in the morning some days and I feel as hopeless as the next guy. I'm like, God, I don't even know what I should do right now. I don't know what, it's like, but wait, the solution to that is move your butt, get up and work out. It's like, do some burpees and some push-ups and get out of your head. And your head is the prison that that's preventing your body and yourself from moving forward. And that is an oversimplified answer. So in order, it would be move your ass, exercise. That's step one. Step two is share your message. And it usually comes from books and speaking. And again, using media. And the third thing is having the courage to outsource. And that just takes some practice. And really the solution to all these is all of us need coaches all the time. I have lots of coaches I pay. I've got someone right now who wants me to pay him $250,000 for 6 months of coaching. And it was going to be 3 months. And it's sort of like the thought of that just scares the hell out of me, quite frankly. But I also know that there's some of my own limiting beliefs that are standing in the way that I don't see for myself. Mm-hmm. And having the courage to step forward and write out a pen a check like that is scary. It really is. That's a lot of freaking money. No matter, where you are, it doesn't matter if you get $10 million in the bank, you look at it and go, But if you want to get to your next level, if you want to 10x your life, you're going to have to throw down and, again, have that courage and invest in yourself, invest in your education and be willing to accept someone's interpretation of your behaviors, your actions, and your lack of self-discipline.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes just having that perspective, and if it's the right person that has that different perspective on what's going on for you, that shift happens so much faster than us trying to figure it all out internally. So, yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. And I think the whole mastermind space, or just coaching space, finding that right person and the right match makes all the difference in the world. Because we can't do it all ourselves. I mean, there's just no way. Going a little more micro and just internally, because I know, we all use technology. We all use this wonderful device called a smartphone that, is sort of our access to, the rest of the world and everything else. I'm just curious what your favorite apps or different things with your smartphone that you use to add value to your life personally, whether it's a meditation app, workout app, maybe it's a productivity app. What could you share with our listeners as to things that you use your smartphone for that really make your life quality better?
All right. I'm going to pop it up here and, I'll tell you that one app that I use all the time. And I've got as of right now, I've got the iPhone 8S Plus, which on video I'm holding up, because the new lens on this thing is freaking awesome. I actually did not get the iPhone X. That'll date this podcast a little bit. And the reason I didn't get it is because for the first time in 30 years, I don't trust Apple with this new product. So the first one is an app called rev.com. I use that constantly for recording audio and doing my books. For podcasts, I use an app called Overcast. It allows me to speed up podcasts, by 1.5 times usually or more without changing the tone. I have a timer that I use. It's called Countdown Timer. That's super handy. I have an app called Prompt Smart that is a teleprompter app. And I constantly use Google Docs and Google Sheets and Dropbox on my phone as well. And then 2 apps that I use for news. I use the news app now on the phone, but the other one is an app called Feedly. And I have to admit that's probably, if I had like a soul-sucking menace action that I occasionally, my vice is I actually like reading tech news and other news, although, invariably some normal mainstream news shows up and I find it to be an absolutely poisonous thing. But something about me just loves to periodically look at it. And of course, I use YouTube and Facebook a lot. I used to use an app called Flickster, but it turned into a complete piece of junk. And same with Fandango. So I have not found a good movie app because I love going to theaters and watching movies. And then lately, because I've been investing in Bitcoin and the others, I actually sold all my Bitcoin holdings after I doubled my money. And as of now, it's just hit over $10,000. It's insane. And
it's 11 today.
Yeah, it's completely crazy. Again, I know this dates this, but it's like I had been predicting what was going to happen for a little while, but I thought it's faster than anticipated. And then beyond that, we're doing this on Zoom. I use Zoom on the phone, and I think Skype has turned into a big piece of garbage, but I still use it. It has become an incredibly bloated piece of junk. There's another app that I use, though. It's called Sketch. I use it both on my desktop and on my phone for marking stuff up.
Love Sketch. Yeah.
Yep. Very, very handy. And then let's see if there's anything else. I'd love to say that I found like this fantastic video editing app on here, but I really haven't. I do have an app called Pzizz, P-Z-I-Z-Z. It's a sleep app. Another one called Sleep Cycle that talk to each other. And then one called Heart Math. It's a little adapter that you can pinch on your ear that helps with meditation. It's like a poor man's meditation. And then let's see here. I know there was another. Infusionsoft. That's we have Infusionsoft. So it's a horrible app. Almost completely worthless. But at least you can check your accounts. I use the Headspace app. That's a good meditation tool. And then of course Kindle. Mm-hmm. But that's, I'd say those are probably the main ones. On my iPad, obviously Netflix, I use that all the time. There is a good video shooting app. It's called VisiWig. It's a high end, camera app that'll record like 4K and you've got total control over your phone through this thing. So normally if you're using the built-in video tools, what you're going to find is, you don't have control. So your auto exposure will flip back and forth and things just kind of look yucky. Mm-hmm. So, one last one. This thing is probably next to Rev, my other most handy thing. It's called Tape a Call. It lets you record phone conversations.
Oh, wow.
So if you've ever, you're on the road and you want to talk to your team member or you're doing a call with someone, it's like, God, I wish I had this right now. You just fire up Tape a Call. And what it does is it merges your phone with another number. So, and it records and then you can press a button, send it to rev.com and have it transcribed. That
Nice.
Thing is a masterpiece of an app.
That sounds very cool. Now, I don't know how privacy works anymore these days with that kind of thing, but do you need to let people know that you're recording the call?
Yeah, legally you have to tell people, although the app doesn't automatically do that because it's just bridging.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely, legally you have to tell someone if you're recording a conversation.
Yeah. So just for the listeners, a heads up, if you are going to use this kind of an app, that you might want to just let people know it's not necessarily something for invading people's space.
I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on the internet.
No, but I just want to make sure that we're not getting ourselves in trouble here. Anyway, that sounds like a great suite of apps that you've got there to really, everything from wellness and well-being to productivity and entertainment and all of those different pieces. So that's awesome. And I think, very helpful. And for those that are listening, just, make sure you check the show notes because we'll have a transcription there. So you'll be able to see all of those recommendations because it sounds like a lot of them would be super helpful particularly for entrepreneurs that want to get their visibility out there. And I just want to make sure we take a moment that we make sure that we tell people how to find you because you've got so many great things going on right now. I'm coming up for another one to launch my second book. So I'm really excited to come back down for Publish and Profit the second time. It was a really great experience. I've also done work with you on the media training, as I mentioned before. And for anybody that is not comfortable with that or is comfortable with that and wants to build some different pieces to add to their existing tools, highly recommend spending some time with the You Everywhere Now team. But anyway, I will let you tell our folks, and then this stuff will also go into the show notes. So, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about how to find you and what you got there?
Sure. Well, the first one is, of course, you can go to youeverywherenow.com. The shortcut link is yen.tv. And there you can get some of my free books. One of them is Publish and Profit. The other thing is we've got free webinars. So like our suite of products basically starts, as you had said, Publish and Profit is usually the tip of the spear. I'm very bullish, always have been, on writing a book and becoming a best-selling author. And you can do it a lot faster than you think. In fact, one of the things that I will say publicly is I am going to write a book before our next event. So as of now, we're less than 10 days away. I will have it done, published, and available before we begin. And it's a book I've wanted to write for a long time that I've just kind of sat on for a little while. And right now is a good time for it. So, and my previous book I finished in 3 days. So it is absolutely possible. So I'm actually just going to put my nose down. I'm going to finish this thing. And I think out of all the things you can ever do for you, your business, your clarity and focus is write a book. And then beyond that, we teach you how to coach, consult, and advise. That's one of our programs. It's called Consult and Profit. Another one is how to speak and sell, or how to get paid speaking gigs. That's Speak and Profit. And then we've got Create and Profit, which is how to turn your ideas and wisdom and knowledge into products. Those are kind of like the main ones. And then we've got live events as well. But the primary focus is always, how do you get your message out there? How do you tell your story more effectively? And then how do you package you in a way that makes people want to buy, not just you, but your business, your brand, and make something that's going to have value? Again, looking back, speaking for myself, the two best things you can do to attain a level of peace, tranquility, and freedom is eventually package and sell your business, or learn how to create certification or licensing programs, because that's when you can truly get paid and you don't have to be there all the time. And that is very, very transformational for folks. And it definitely, some of the best breaks I ever got were when I sold my past two businesses. You get a big check, you get some time to think and decide, do I want to reinvent myself? But you also are given that opportunity when you're in the fold and you're working with people and you're helping them build and grow and do whatever you do. For you, Heidi, you've got this beautiful opportunity where you're taking all this research, all this passion, all this work you've been doing and packaging it, and you're able to provide some huge value to entrepreneurs and, for that matter, larger organizations. Or when we were talking earlier today, being able to go to some manufacturers, for example, and do partnerships. And you're on the cutting edge of technology and psychology and productivity. And that's exciting. A lot of people really need what you're doing right now. And what you've done that's very wise of you is you've made an investment in yourself, not only in your education, but in your platform. And that's what's necessary. If you're going to get attention and you're going to build a following, and boost your credibility, that is the game that you've so intelligently you're playing for yourself. I think it's brilliant. I'm really impressed with you, proud of you too.
Well, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it, and I couldn't have done it without you. So, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, it's so important to find those mentors that can help you through the things that maybe aren't your comfort zone, or maybe you need that different perspective. And, Mike, you've been instrumental for me, and I have a few other mentors that I've worked in the different other areas. And each one of them has pushed me that much further out of my introvert comfort zone of, I'm one of those people that I can speak on a stage with lots of people in front of me, but then, I'm not that comfortable in that, sort of once I get back into the green room, I'm sitting by myself on the couch, maybe having a conversation with 2 or 3 people. So, it's just getting comfortable with that visibility piece. And you're so good at helping provide, helping get those tools together so the visibility just comes naturally and you grow into the comfort in a way. So I look forward to hearing how some of our listeners will connect to you and see what they're able to do. And when, if you have a moment this is to you, the listeners, take a chance and come to the Digital Self Mastery Facebook page and come and have a conversation. Let us know what you've done with the magical work that Mike's doing or with other mentors and how they've helped you shift your relationship with technology to really create something powerful. Because the more that we share, the more we really understand that we're not alone and that it's possible and what is possible. So I encourage you to not just keep it to yourself, but share the experiences that you have and the mentors you've worked with and what you're doing, because I think there's a lot of great stuff out there. So we're getting close to the end of our show here. Mike, do you have any words of wisdom that you want to pass on to our listeners before we sign off?
Well, I'll share one that I got from a client of mine, actually, a customer that I was coaching. Actually, I'm going to be coaching him again today. His name's David. And he is in the business. He works with a lot of healers, a lot of chiropractors, and he helps them build and grow their businesses. And he used a word that I don't use often enough, but it impacted me so much that I'm going to use it a lot more. And it's this notion of awareness. And, for you, Heidi, in the business you're in, you're heightening awareness, you're increasing awareness. And for you to get attention, be able to do what you need or want to do for people, you need to create awareness as well. And, getting attention is one thing. I've really focused on that as a key word and being an influencer and, creating status. But, the missing piece is, what are you doing right now to create awareness, in your market, in your business, for your perfect audience, your customers? And awareness is something that happens all the time. It's not like a one-time deal. Yes, they need to be aware that you exist, but also aware that there's a solution, a way to solve their key problems. And that's an ongoing conversation. It's a relationship of intimacy that you want to seek, and you're granted permission to provide awareness and to have intimacy with people. And so as you move forward today and into whatever you want to do with your life, to whether you're reinventing yourself or you just want to amplify what you're already doing, ask yourself that question. What am I doing today to create more awareness for me, my products, my services, and the people I want to reach and the lives I want to change? So those are my parting words.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Mike. I really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you soon at Publish and Profit. For any of you that are interested in doing a book, I highly recommend taking some time and looking at, what they're doing in this program, because it was that push that I needed to get it done. And it was just, it was an amazing experience and also made some great friends in the process. So it's a really fun event to top it all off. So I just want to say thank you all for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, to rate, review, and share. We look forward to having you come back and join us at the Evolving Digital Self podcast. And this is me, Dr. Heidi Forbes Öste, signing off. Bye-bye for now.
Thank for joining us for the Evolving Digital Self. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app now so that you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, please give us a rating and a review and join the Digital Self-Mastery movement to create more conscious use of technology by sharing it and telling your friends. Want to see where you fit on the digital self spectrum and how it might be impacting your business and relationships? Get your free copy of Digital Self-Mastery today by clicking on the link in the show notes.